I feel like we need like a theme song of some kind,
Like a little bit of
an
music, like a little
intro,
intro.
something. Right now we've got nothing, and that is not. It's not the greatest of looks. It's not.
Can it's a good cue, that hey, we're live.
Yeah, we're as opposed to just silence and then we need music. It's always a good start. Always a good start.
But hey, we're live.
Yeah, we are live. We're live. We're back at it. Week 2. I believe you have to drop a catchphrase.
Oh yes. To come in, everybody. I hope you sit back, relax, and just enjoy a fantastic podcast that we have created for you.
Yes.
More music. We need more music.
Yeah,
We need a
and
few. We need a few buttons to press.
I'm here for it. I think that getting all the music is what we need. Uh, I also think we need to give a quick blurb. Check us out on social. Jake is posting up an absolute storm on all of the social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We also are on YouTube, and you can check out the podcast if you want just the audio version. Basically, anywhere you can get podcasts. Um, there are sites
For
I've
Amazon
never
at the
even
moment.
heard of. Breaker, never heard of it. Radio Public, again, never heard of it. But then you got the normals, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll be on Amazon soon. Again, didn't know that they did podcasts, but hey, we are going to be there. If,
Why not?
if that happens to be your location of choice, we've got you covered.
Cater to you, the
Yes.
people.
Another fun thing, in a few minutes, we're actually going to have one of our very first guests. In fact, it is our first guest. Our good friend Chris will be joining us. He's in our league. He's going to, we talked about his roster last week, and he's actually going to jump on, tell us why we were wrong, and then also go through another roster with us. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh dear, the insight from the mindset of the drafter.
Yeah. And Top Trader, the guy is wheeling and dealing things like crazy, trying to constantly like get deals done. He's a regular trader looking at anything that he can to get some action.
Will never doesn't like to be bored, and I don't think he ever will be bored because if there is any second of free time, it goes into relating some sort of trade.
Yeah. Judge Judy Slayer just gave us a follow on Twitch, so thank you for that. We're glad to have you.
Thanks, Judy.
Yes. A few quick headlines before Chris joins us. I figured it would be a great time to talk about how Patrick Mahomes has been phenomenal as a quarterback. I think that we could all
No,
agree with that.
no.
He's been 38-8. 8 losses is not bad. I thought that this was kind of a fun fact. If they go 14-3 this year, so 3 losses, which is not outlandish to say it's possible, his win percentage is actually going to go down.
That would be an interesting. I wonder if there's any. I don't know if they go this deep in Vegas, but that's got to be a like that should have been a Vegas bet.
Like a
You probably
prop
could
bet.
have coaxed people into it. Yeah, yeah. That is absolutely crazy. That would have been the best records last year and for a long time, I'm sure. So that's nuts.
Yeah, the guy has
14
got
and 3.
a phenomenal win record. Whoever has got him on their teams, whether it be the Kansas City Chiefs, who they locked him down for like the next 35 years, or in fantasy, anybody that has him, like he's a stud. Obviously, that's why he's the number one quarterback.
There's I was reading something earlier about how there's a couple teams who are doing like their contracts right for their teams, and it's like the I mean the two teams that are in the Super Bowl, Buccaneers and Chiefs, like they got good quarterbacks. They maintained their rosters, and if anything, just got better over the offseason because like how they're structuring their rosters, where it's like all up front because they can in the moment, and then it's like, let's see what happens in the future. And I don't know why no one else does it that way because clearly it works. It's pretty. They're consistently good the past few years, and they look like they're going to be for a while. So maybe
Yeah.
that'll be a trend. But there has to be a negative. I don't know the negative. I couldn't figure out the negative, but there's probably a reason other teams aren't doing it. But regardless, roster in Tampa Bay, and yeah, Mahomes is a really, really, really good quarterback. If that's hot take coming in here.
I mean, I'm to be honest, I'm surprised somebody said it. I didn't think that was going to be said.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, the Saints are going to be playing in Jacksonville for their first game. It was supposed to be at home, but with everything that's going on with the Hurricanes, they have moved to Jacksonville for Game 1. Good news is that maybe Jacksonville will actually see a decent team playing in their stadium for once. But
Rude. Rude.
I think you've heard this. There was the fake high school team that convinced ESPN to air their game live. Did you hear about that?
It did cross my mind. Yeah, I don't whoever is in charge of, maybe doing a quick Google search on the ESPN side is probably no longer with ESPN. I feel like that is not tough to figure out when they didn't. I mean, they don't have like a football program on their website even or anything. So, yeah, it's pretty little bit of a miss there, nonetheless.
Yeah, I feel like that's an understatement. It was definitely a big miss. I think it's great. I mean, I wish that that would happen more often. From what I was reading, they weren't even high school kids. They were like trying to get recruited into D1 schools, and they were adults. And then they played against IMG Academy, which kind of has a reputation. I think that it was just phenomenal that they were able to. Whoever orchestrated that, props. Like hats off to you.
It's like those videos where people sneak into a concert by making like fake press passes or
Yeah,
fake tickets or something.
yeah,
But on a even a bigger scale. I
yeah.
feel
Because
like they were on TV.
it would be like getting invited to be backstage because you created enough things to be like, yeah, I'm an influencer, and look at all of these people that like check me out and love me, and now I get to go backstage, and you wanted me to be here.
And as I'm sure everyone knows, now that Mac Jones is starting quarterback and Newton was released, I think he's actually signing with that team now. From what I heard.
With Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah.
It's going to give a lot of credibility to the program.
Yeah, he's good move. Good move.
It's a good move for him. There's still no quarterback one in San Francisco, apparently. So they're still deciding between Garoppolo and Lance. They can't decide. They love them both. I don't know if you watched the preseason game, but they were basically swapping plays. I think that would be a very interesting route for San Francisco to take. Is just to have two quarterbacks, and teams can't really prep for that.
You can't game plan. I mean, if you think about it, that is kind of the smart route where you're spending half your time game planning for one and half it other. I mean, they can get less of it down. It's kind of what the Patriots do with like their running backs. Now you think you want your starting quarterback to probably be locked in and like take all the practice reps, especially as a rookie, but why not? It'd be
I,
pretty cool to see, honestly. It'd be pretty cool.
I think I read that there was the Cowboys back in like the 70s or 80s were the last team to try the two quarterback route, and since then that has not been a thing. Um, I mean, I thought that New England was going to do this and have
Mm-hmm.
Jones basically run every single play up until they got to the goal line and then drop Newton in.
The Colts did it last year with Philip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett, where if it was ever 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, Brissett went in, and it was probably, but it was a QB sneak most likely. So Newton's a little bit more of a dual threat, where I think it makes more sense, and that's kind of how it is over there in San Francisco, where at least Lance is like super mobile, and I mean Garoppolo isn't like not mobile quarterback, but I mean I guess it's just more of a testament to Jones and like what he proved out there, because you
Yeah.
have to prove a lot to come in here and have them make that decision, be willing to completely release the guy.
Yeah.
Obviously, he would not be an ideal fit for, like, that'd be a weird presence like as a backup to be if you're Newton. And I think Belichick must have had enough respect for him to to see that and do that for him. To
Yeah.
be traded or released than traded, because you get to choose your own destiny. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm gonna circle back to Newton in a little bit, but I think we have time for a couple more before Chris jumps on. So J.K. Dobbins' injury, that's a big deal for Baltimore, a big deal within fantasy, especially right before the season starts. A lot of leagues had drafted already. Some leagues waited until much like this week to be drafting, but some of them had to do it a bit earlier, and so people picked up Dobbins, maybe didn't pick up Edwards, or somebody picked up Edwards just as like a flyer late round. But that's kind of a big deal for running backs. I think that it's going to be interesting, as time has continued to go on of problems with running backs and being in situations where they're hurt right before the season, and like young guys not really wanting to play. I think that was why there was a big push for not doing as many preseason games as they currently have now. But that's I don't think it's anything new.
I mean, I'd be pissed if I was on their end, because if there was if there would have been 4 preseason games, this wouldn't have happened, because this only happens in the last preseason game. So
Yeah.
it's the NFL's fault for only having 3 preseason games, because this stuff only happens on the last preseason game. So tough, 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 tough. Not good.
Yeah, yeah. It is what it is. I feel like if you're looking at kind of redraft leagues, obviously injuries are a little bit more impactful when it comes to making those decisions about who you're going to draft and who you're not going to draft. In dynasty style things, it's less of a thing, right? If you've already been playing for a few years, having an injury to one of your players is just kind of something you almost have to bank on, and that's kind of like a risk with any of the players you're picking up. And you kind of just you can't really say like, oh, I did my first year one draft and all of my guys got hurt, because if you would have had them in the previous year, then all of your guys would have still gotten hurt. So it's a bit different of a mindset, I think, to have between those kinds of leagues. But it's definitely makes you kind of think through injury prone players if you're trying to have them for the long haul as opposed to one season.
Yeah, it's definitely a factor into like the salary and whatnot in like our league, for example. It's something it makes it scarier.
Yeah,
Makes it scarier.
yeah. If you look at Thomas, he's still on the pup list. I wasn't really super surprised about that. I kind of thought that was going to happen, just based off of the stories that have been going on. But what do you think about some of the off the field things going on with Thomas? Do you think that there's anything to that, or is it just kind of purely an injury?
Just like with his dissatisfaction, or I haven't read any
Yeah,
much more than that. I mean, he did always kind of have those. I mean, and this dates back to like last year, the kind of the cryptic tweets and whatnot. So if I'm him, it does probably kind of feel like a year that maybe doesn't, like, they're not as much of a threat as they have been. They're not as, and so why not try to get healthy and be able to come back when you're 100, maybe have a little bit of buying power for your future versus the in the now, where, because he did play hurt last year knowing it was his last year with Breeze, and they still were, a top tier team.
Yeah.
And they kind of had a chance. Whereas I think there's probably this year doesn't feel that same way, which they could still very well be a pretty good team. I'm pretty high on Winston. Um, most TDs, most yards. I mean, that speaks for something. But which I mean, if you're Michael Thomas, I think you like to hear it. Like you like that. I mean, Breeze's arm wasn't the same the past few years, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. What is your take on that?
It kind of made me think. I think that we have the opportunity this year to kind of really think through, like, it's a bit different, to think through having a player long term as opposed to 1 year, and the off the field issues and things like the potential of players wanting to hold out, players wanting to be traded, that kind of stuff. It puts in a different factor that I hadn't really ever thought through a lot when I was playing in some of the redraft leagues that I was in, of where it's like, you know, Juju doing the crate challenge and deciding to run up a thing of milk crates and then potentially fall. People were getting hurt. Yeah, he's an athlete. People are still getting hurt from accidental things like that. How much that plays a factor into players that I'm looking at is more than I thought it would be. And I feel like it might cloud my judgment a bit more than it should, of where I'm like, oh, this, I don't want this player. They clearly are making bad decisions, and that could affect me down the line if I'm trying to long term deal this person or get a good trade or something like that.
There were those fantasy campaigns like 10 years ago. It was like the pick me campaigns where like they were all fake videos where like Ocho Cinco would put a ball in the ball machine, shoot it, and he'd run and go catch it, and it was like clearly fake and stuff. But there was one with like a Patriots running back who dove through like both car windows and like to just, and they come up and they're like, "This is why you pick me." And I remember people were like, okay, if this player is gonna film this video, I'm not gonna draft him and stuff. And they literally had to like put out like, I'm sorry, these aren't real stunts, like because it was like scaring people away from it. So yeah, it's definitely they do things behind the scenes that we don't know, believe it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Chris has joined us. I think Chris might have heard a little bit of what we were talking about. I'm just going to put you on the spot. Chris, how much do you take into account when you are talking about a player and their off the field behavior, things that they might do that don't necessarily affect their gameplay, but how much does that, like, how much do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I heard the Juju example, so I thought that as well, and I LOL to myself because I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen all the other videos, but the falling and then the injuries are mind-bogglingly hilarious. So I was expecting like a broken neck or you know DL for sure, but I would say it's hard because it's where do you draw the line? Because football, I'm not trying to get on a soapbox, but football's got a bunch of scummy dudes, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Guilty as charged on my own team, sadly. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's like Juju's a good example too, from all like the logo dancing and stuff that he did too, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just kind of good old fun. So, I am of the mind that you just kind of shut up and like go do your job and let your actions on the field do your thing. And I kind of like that maybe, and that's maybe like the 50th thing on my mind when picking players. But it's at the end of the day, it's football, and the NFL is a pretty shitty league. So I kind of just you put the blinders on, and then you just kind of see who's supposed to score you more points.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I feel like dancing is one thing, and then doing something where you could literally like end your life, like
Oh
fall on
yeah.
your neck when you're 12 feet up in the air, is like another, like that's wild to me. But
Well,
it's,
and
I
I think
mean,
like there's player contracts too, like where they're not allowed. I think the one I always think about is Jay Williams, Duke point guard in the NBA. think he wasn't allowed to like ride motorcycles or anything like that, but then did it and then like severely injured himself so that he's now no longer in the NBA and like a color guy. But yeah, like you can't, who there's like some contract things that I've heard where you like can't go ski or snowboarding, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get it. I know if you're a GM like us, right? You're a professional general manager of an elite sports organization.
Yeah. Just like us.
Yeah, you need to protect your
Yeah,
investments. Yeah,
there's
just like us.
a lot of stress on our mind all the time. So help
Yeah,
us
and
ease it a little bit, guys.
the COVID thing too. It's pretty funny seeing how many players are anti-vaxxers or at least anti-COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. Where like, seriously, like this piece of shit doesn't want to get vaccinated. He's too good to get vaccinated, really. So that plays into it too. But then also like,
Which the Colts, I believe, ended up having their percentage of players being vaccinated go down after their full amount of
after the
of
cuts.
the 53
Yeah.
man roster.
Jesus.
Well, I mean, like if you think about it, if you're on the line of making the team and not, and it's you're vaxxed or you're not vaxxed, you probably have the one up by that little thing. So maybe not because the percentage went down, I guess, but yeah.
What is the protocol? Is it 5 days or like what are you like quarantined for X amount of days if you're in contact or test positive?
I think it's 5 days if you're a close contact because they have like a lot of people out right now for just being close
Yeah,
contacts. And I
yeah.
think they're 5 days, so it must be longer if you are anything more than that.
Hmm.
I guess what is it for real? If you actually do have it for even us, it's more than that, right?
I
Yeah.
think you're supposed to wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, Chris, thank you for joining us. We thought that we looked at your roster last week. It was a bit unfair of us to just look at it without you to provide any context. So we'd love to get.
It's a lot easier to do when you're
Oh,
in
it
the
was
room,
great.
though.
It was great, guys. I found it quite entertaining, and I think you guys are pretty spot on. Yeah, I have no qualms about your take on my team.
Well, that's good.
I feel like you guys are pretty nice in that regard, compared to the only other team that I think you guys have examined, Mr. Andy Schwartz. And I think that was a little rough, but I also agree with most of your points on his team as well. So it'll be
Which
interesting when you get Andy on the show,
which
on the podcast.
which for context, that was an unofficial episode you guys got a sneak
Sure.
preview of. We haven't
Sure.
released that, and I was intentionally saying, Jake, we need to go hard and make fun of Andy and get clips so we could make a few things and test some things out. But I think some of the sentiment was there. It wasn't
I mean,
full...
to be fair, it's not like he's done too much to his team except drop Le'Veon Bell and then add him again. So I think most of the analysis probably still rings true a little bit. But
Probably.
Andy, love you, buddy.
Yes,
Love you,
probably.
bud. Can't wait to play you.
We'll definitely chat through Andy's team in a future episode. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you felt it to be helpful. I know you messaged me afterward and you said, I didn't even know Hawkins got dropped. Which now I regret.
That was right under the
it.
wire. That was right under the wire.
Yeah, he did end up getting picked up by the Titans and then dropped from the Titans. So I'm glad that it wasn't a full, you made a move because of us and then ended up regretting it. But
No. And honestly, I mean, it was between him and when I gave you Stevenson. And I was like, oh man, Stevenson's got like 10 people in front of him. Plus he's got Cam Newton stealing. No, he's not going to get any playing time.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just Mike whatever
Davis.
his name is. Mike Davis. Like, that's it? That old guy? That tiny little dude? No. Like the tiny little boulder? No, he's done. He's going to relinquish some carries to see, I don't even remember who I had, but yeah.
Hawkins,
so
yeah. I mean, Stevenson was the number one running back in terms of carries and yards in the entire league for the preseason. So, I mean, he's definitely going to be the top running back, like all of the other top running backs in the preseason that we've never heard of since.
Exactly. Lock him up, man. Lock him up.
Yeah.
His day is coming.
Yes. Well, let's give you an opportunity. We're gonna chat through Matt's team.
Yep.
I'm really excited because we're gonna have Matt on next week. So hopefully he gets a chance to listen and hear what we think about his team. But I think that we should just dive right in, look at Matt's team, and I want to hear your thoughts and Jake's thoughts as well on the different positions that he has, and kind of get some insight into how you view our competition.
Yeah, for sure. You want me to start?
Well, we'll start with the quarterbacks.
Okay.
So he's got Lamar Jackson, Ryan Tannehill, and Tua, and I will not say Tua's last name because I'm going to butcher it.
Two
Tagovailoa,
attack. That's
but
pretty good.
Just don't say tango, is what I've heard.
Oh,
Avoid saying tango.
no ends there. No.
yeah, there is not an N. So Jackson, Tannehill, and Tua. What do you guys think about that?
Wouldn't complain about Jackson. I think that's pretty good. I mean, he got last year was an off. I think it scared people away from him a little bit. It was a humbling probably year for where he was, but just offense wasn't as scary as it could have been either. Ryan is apparently the biggest sleeper quarterback. Everyone is just super super high on him. Being in the Colts division, I think he's garbage. So and just came from the Dolphins, and he got released, so I still think he's garbage. And then now we have the current Dolphins quarterback, who we'll probably talk about later, but if they're possibly pursuing Watson, do they have that much faith in him that they would be doing that? I don't know.
That is true. That is true. I think I remember when Jackson went in the auction, he was a steal compared to, like Mahomes and even like Mr. Trevor Lawrence. And I think even Josh Allen too. Like it went under what Josh Allen went on. But he had that down year. I'm looking at it right now. He's still the 10th best quarterback with a relatively down year. He's going to be top 5 pretty much. And then with Dobbins out, right? Like I think that just kind of opens it up a little bit more for him to sneak in and grab a couple of goal line TDs. But I think I have no issues with that. I mean, I obviously have a completely different approach to QBs on my team, but when I look at the Mahomes salaries and the Allen salaries and stuff, Jackson at 38-1 is totally fine by me. Tannehill, I love the Titans team. That we'll get to AJ Brown a little bit later, but I don't blame him at all for paying for Tannehill. I do think there's a little bit of regression coming though, right? I'm looking. He had 7 rushing touchdowns. Like that seems a little high to try and replicate for another season. They came in at what, eighth best QB. He's great. Like when you talk about it, 26-1, more than I would ever pay for a QB, but that cap is like 10 million for me. So, that's solid. Like I think that combo in the super flex spot, yeah, he doesn't have to worry. And then Tua's a decent like second option, right? Like I think bye week option, and seeing how the season goes, I'm hoping he does pretty well because I got Waddle that he needs to pass to. But yeah, I mean trade bait too, right? Like for a guy like me that has no QBs and needs someone halfway decent. So
Yeah.
solid core.
Especially at 5 million of the 182 that we have. That's really good for a quarterback who is top 20 most likely.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, 5. Yeah, I didn't even see that. Jeez, cheap.
Yeah, it's a very very good value, I think, for what you'd be getting out of him.
Yeah, and he locked him up for 5 years. So
yeah,
I think that could be a huge steal.
Yeah, like you guys said, obviously Jackson's a very solid quarterback. Tannehill had a really great season last year. Projected to be 2 top 10 quarterbacks. I think in a super flex league, having 2 top 10 quarterbacks is going to be great. But he also did invest like a third of his cap into the QB slot. So let's see if that affects his other positions. So we can just jump into running back. He's got Mixon, Carson, Dillon, Madison, Evans, and Jones.
Yeah, it's
Crumbles
a
a little bit.
completely different strategy than yours, Chris, from the quarterback standpoint. But uh, Mixon is a scary pick to me. I feel like he's just been banged up the past few years, and he's in our league had a pretty high price tag, if I remember right. I feel like he went for he's probably top as a top 10 running back. Be my guess.
He went for 27, which would stick him as being the 12th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not
And
bad.
he's currently projected to be the 12th best running back as well. So, not awful in terms of like him landing out where his salary is, but his number one running back is Mixon, who is just sitting kind of at that cusp of, is he going to be good? Is he not going to be good? Is he going to be, really an RB1 for you and kind of bring in those points that you need at that position of where there is such a disparity between, the top running backs and then getting into that second group of guys.
I mean, Chris Carson, obviously not a bad running back at all. Pretty, like that duo is not bad. Still, I mean, I could see at the end of the season both these players not being on the active roster. I feel like Chris Carson kind of ends up banged up a fair amount too, but if they're both healthy, that's a pretty good. But then after that, it's just kind of the depth is a little bit questionable and wouldn't be my favorite thing.
Yeah, it does drop down into RB2s on their own teams as opposed to just kind of being an RB2 in terms of fantasy rankings. But Dillon being the backup for Jones, Madison in Minnesota, Evans in Tennessee, who's I'm not sure if he's number 2 or number 3, and then Jones, who is I believe now a free agent.
Did he get cut?
Or no, maybe he didn't get cut, but he's going to go under surgery, so he might be out for the season.
Mm-hmm.
Which LA, they're down now Cam Akers and also Xavier Jones, so they've currently got Henderson, Sonny Michel, and Jake Funk. So they've got three remaining running backs on their roster.
Yeah, then Jones was still probably going to be number 3 behind Michelle and
that
Henderson.
pickup, yeah, it kind of falls off a little bit. I think there's one of the other teams. Someone's got like super strong, solid, no doubt top 10 2 running backs, and then it falls off, right? But I think Matt's got kind of a dice roll on Mixon. I hate the Seahawks, so like Chris Carson means nothing to me. He could pretty much be 4th string in my eyes. But Mixon's good, right? And he doesn't have Bernard to take any more of those couple of catches, and I'm trying to think who's the backup to Mixon. Let's see.
Who is it now?
Oh, Perrine from the Jets. Yeah, I mean he's got no competition. So I mean he'll get the bulk of the workload. I mean, yeah, it's just going to be a question if he stays healthy. But I mean, aside from last season, pretty healthy. 16 games, 14 games, 14 games. So I like Mixon. I mean, I think I probably would have. I don't know if I would have paid 27, but I don't think that's an overpay by any means.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Stevie, who has Henry and Eckler, and then drops down to Pollard and Rashad Penny.
Yeah, and yeah, right, like Henry and Eckler versus Mixon and
Carson.
Yeah, but Carson, like again, I actively root against the Seahawks, so he means nothing to me. That's like no points in my eyes. But yeah, like I love all of his backups, right? Like I really wanted Dillon on my roster, and I wanted Madison on my roster too, just because you never know. But at the same time, if something happens to Mixon, something happens to Carson, it gets a little weak, gets a little nerve wracking. But he's got a little bit of money to pick up a waiver wire RB, maybe make a trade here and there.
Yeah.
So not the worst. He didn't extend any of them, so he's got them both on 1 years, which I think is, interesting. Carson, again, I'm not going to say it over and over again. Who is Chris Carson? But Mixon, 27. I mean, with the way that some of the contracts are, who would have thought maybe another year? 27 is not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see who does what in the off season of being able to try and extend players at all, keep them around, or just kind of decide that they're going to go all in on some free agents.
Yeah.
So we went through running backs, we went through quarterbacks. So just jumping into wide receiver, I think this is where Matt has a little bit of a stronger depth position in my eyes. But at wide receiver, he's got AJ Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Odell Beckham Jr., Robbie Anderson, Pittman, and then Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. I think I would just guess. I can't even think of anyone else's roster really, but that seems like pretty decent lineup. AJ Brown, pretty freaking good. I would have paid 23. That seems like a good deal for him. I think Julio's gonna obviously attract like those red zone targets, and so, but he might end up getting double teamed a lot too, which will leave him kind of with the opportunity to get a bunch of touchdowns, and he already got plenty of them. So I mean, I could see him scoring a lot of points this year. Brandon Ayuk, heard really good things about him like all off season about how 49ers are liking what he's doing this year. So I mean, and that's pretty cheap. I mean, I think that's for being number 2 is not my favoriteest thing, but I think it's not a bad spot to be in. Odell, I want to think it's gonna be like it's hard to say Odell is my number 3 wide receiver. Like that is the weirdest thing to like think and say, but I think it's
In
probably
terms that
right.
you think he because you think he should be higher, or
Yeah, like the 3 year ago me is just
yeah.
reminiscing back to when he's making one-handed grabs, and I'm mind boggled. And I mean, he probably still does that, but it just has never been the same thing for him. So I don't know. Seems like he could maybe. It's like the past 3 years have been like he'll put it together, right? And then when you don't put it together for a few years, maybe it's time to like figure it out on our end and be like, yeah, he's not gonna figure it out.
This will finally be the year.
Yeah, I'll give him one
He's
more year.
he's been in the league for 7 years. The guy's
Yeah.
28 years old, which seems crazy because yeah, like the 3 years, the first 3 years on the Giants, my God, right? And then injuries, got the trade to Cleveland, and that was supposed to be the new awakening, right? And decent first season, but yeah, not. I mean, the Browns, like it's like he can turn it around, like he can turn it around for him. Baker's great, but getting back with Landry too, like there was high hopes, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he
Yeah.
stays healthy, I think it's a decent third wide receiver. But yeah, like I had him, I think last year in the league, and I had high hopes, and
Yeah.
homeboy couldn't keep it together. So this is one of those, and again, like what we talked about earlier, uh, just makes a lot of noise off the field, right? Not bad noise by any means, but he's like throwing money and like handing LSU players stacks of hundreds. I was just like, dude, I don't know, maybe just like stay healthy and catch a couple balls before you just like start flaunting your grill and all these chains. Just don't break something.
It just doesn't always follow. It doesn't translate well back to the field by any means.
No, no,
Robbie Anderson though, I'm pretty high on. I think that's a good
yeah,
deal. I think that's really cheap for he just got paid big money, and so I think they're gonna give him targets. He had I think over 100 and some last year.
oh
I
yeah,
don't think he had very many touchdowns, but I mean, he just showed that they believe in him and they want him to be here. So I think that's pretty awesome on his part, and I think that's a really good price for Robbie Anderson. So
Yeah. He had
yeah,
95 receptions,
okay,
136 targets.
yeah, and he's back with Darnold.
Darnold.
Sam Darnold. Yeah.
Such a duncy white name. I was just like, man, my God. Uh, yeah, like that Robbie Anderson. That's a great price for someone that I think is just gonna eat a bunch of targets. And yeah, 3 touchdowns last year. That's it. Like, granted, they got more. They obviously got McCaffrey, but yeah, that guy for $5.5 million. I mean, wide receiver number 2, WR number 2, easy. He's got a decent ceiling, I think. Yeah, I'm jealous of that one.
Yeah, I think that was.
I wonder if all those touchdowns are probably like 40-yard bombs or something like that.
Yeah.
They probably weren't like 10-yard strikes.
No. Pittman, your boy Pittman.
Currently trying to I don't want to like say too much because I'm currently trying to work on a trade for him right now. But Zach doesn't really want to respond to anything. Actually, I haven't looked in a few hours. Let's see, and nope, nothing from him. So those direct messages, those trade proposals aren't apparently hitting his inbox. So Zach, I mean, this is my third way of contacting you. So let's
get something.
Speed this process up, huh?
We'll have him on the podcast next week.
We do.
Exactly. And maybe we'll let him on. I mean, I might accidentally take him by accident. That'd be a bummer.
Oh no, he's not here. Didn't make it.
Poor connection.
Yeah.
But I'm a Pittman fan, so I think obviously T.Y. Hilton is out. I don't think he's not a polished number 1 receiver, and they have like their number 2s, like the rest of their receivers are number 2s, I think, kind of. So a different skill sets. So it'll like prototypically he is probably the number 1, like on build and skill set, but it'll be interesting to see. But nonetheless, like as of this point, probably at least their number 2 receiver. So it's a good price.
Sorry about Hilton, buddy. Sent him your way, and
he's kind of gonna be a decoy, I think, anyway. So
yeah, that guy also. I mean, 31 years old, fading pretty fast. Because I remember just the long bombs. I mean, Andrew Luck, R.I.P. Hasn't really had anyone to throw to him. So yeah, I'm high on Pittman too. He's on my very long list of wide receivers that I really liked and players that I really liked. But yeah, for $2.5 million, he's going to get targets. Carson Wentz will have to throw to someone eventually. So not bad. Not bad. I do like Pittman quite a bit.
And I think that's the same story with Jalen Reagor too, where they're just gonna Hurts has got to throw the ball to someone, and I think would he be classified as is he their number 1? Number
Reagor?
2?
No, isn't what's his face? Devonta Smith.
Devonta Smith is number 1. Reagor's 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
Reagor's
rookie.
2.
Yeah. I traded Reagor to Matt. Mostly because again, I'm not I like to just look at other people's analysis, and I literally take RotoWire's like updates as gospel. I'm like, oh god, he had a bad practice. He got chewed out. Done. Cut.
You're off my
off
team.
The team.
Here, get out of here. Yeah, but I mean, again, I think I'm kind of just low on the Eagles. All up, Miles Sanders, player that Kyle traded to me. Just wasn't a fan of him really. Jalen Hurts Smith. Yeah, wait, you have him now, right?
I have him now. Yep.
Yeah. I think Devonta Smith will be good rookie to pick up. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not high on Reagor.
I didn't realize that Flacco was the QB3 in Philadelphia, but does that change your outlook on Reagor if Hurts goes down, Minshew gets benched, and Flacco comes in?
Maybe gets a nice little bump up. But I mean, I think he's young guy. I think pretty cheap contract. So Matt, I think locked him up a little bit too, which is I think smart. You can easily dump him if he doesn't perform, but not a bad pickup.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that assessment. I look at. I don't think that there's going to be very many opportunities for Reagor to be in your starting lineup. I think it's kind of one of more of those stash plays. If you have injuries and you kind of need that to fill in or deep bye weeks. But at basically absolutely nothing in comparison to our cap. It's not a bad spot to have him sitting and kind of see what happens in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his wide receivers, and I'm gonna go back to Brown because I originally had him and traded him over, and probably one of my biggest regrets right now. But yeah, I mean, look at that, 23 mil to Brown, and then literally under 10 for everybody else. 8.2, 5.6, 5.5, 2.5, 1.2. Yeah, he's got a nice, solid receiving core that is cheap, and he's extended most of them. Yeah. Because even OBJ, right? He's 5.6. Yeah, flyer on him and see what he does. But yeah, AJ Brown. I mean, I'm super high on AJ Brown. I think 23-2 was an absolute steal for him. I was looking back at some of the trades of the 57 trades that I made so far, and that I think I'm just like, why did I do this? Like, what was I thinking? Let's see.
I feel the same way. And now that I'm looking at my wide receivers and realizing that at one point I did have Adams and Hopkins and Evans and Moore and Woods and Johnson. Like, I had a pretty decent group of wide receivers, but I didn't have anything else, and that's why I ended up making those moves.
Yeah. I traded Brown and a 2022 fourth round and a 2023 second round for Kenny Golladay and a 2022 first and 0.7. What the hell was I thinking?
That was you went through that pick phase though.
The thing
that you
is,
wanted.
That was my
Chris. That was also part of the 3-team deal of where you also got Amari Cooper from me for Johnson, and then and Matt.
You're right.
Samuel. So that was kind of where it all went in.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So it wasn't that stupid, but still. Yeah, AJ Brown, man. I am that is the one that I regret for sure. I think AJ Brown is going to, like you said, I mean, he didn't even play a full season last season and was that great. So, Julio's going to take some heat off of him. I was always high on Corey Davis on the Titans. I know he's on the Jets now, and I thought he was always a really good player, but obviously you got Julio aging, but still really good receiver. Defense is going to have a hard time with those two.
And you got Henry, the run game,
both those guys, Julio and Brown, but Brown for 23, Jesus, that hurts. That hurts. Matt, if you want to trade him back, line's always open.
Chris is
you let me know if he sends you anything, because then that means he's
looking.
Yeah, he's got the red receipts on. Looking at tight ends finally to finish up his roster. He's got Mark Andrews and then Mike Gesicki, which I would argue he's got one of the strongest tight end groups. For some reason, our league does not have very many tight ends that have been rostered. Everyone has one. Some people have two. There are a couple that have three. But we only have 24 total wide receiver or tight ends that have been picked up, and he has got arguably the number 5 and the number 11, number 10 tight end. So he's still got some coverage when Andrews is out for his bye week at a very low rate.
I feel like everyone waited till the end after the top 3, top 5 were gone. Everyone just kind of casted tight end to the side, and Gesicki at 1.8 seems like a really good deal to me. I mean, he seemed really he had a great year last year. I thought he was reliable. I mean, I don't know what his stats were, but I just feel like you saw plenty of highlights of him scoring touchdowns, and I don't know if what the stats are. Maybe that was I saw the 4 highlights.
I can tell you what the stats were. So he had 53 receptions for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean that's not half bad for a backup tight end. 1.8 million. I think that's a good pick.
He did me probably my biggest favor, but another one that I think he got a good deal on, Andrews, because I remember Kyle and I were battling away. I already had Pitts, but I couldn't let Kyle take Andrews for that cheap, so I ended up with him. But I at that point I almost had like no money left, and I think I had just blown another chunk on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I was just like, this is, what do I need 2 tight ends for? And Matt took him. Matt took Mark, didn't get anything back. He just took the salary, which again, I mean, solid salary. Yeah, he did me a big favor, though. It did hurt to lose Andrews for that cheap. But you know what? I'm rolling my dice on Pitt, so I think it'll be okay. And Gesicki, you know, his last name is like a Korean curse word. Like Gesicki is like motherfucker, I think. Something like that. So every time I see it, I'm like, this homeboy is just like a walking Korean curse.
He's got an unfortunate last name.
Yeah, but you know, I like Kyle. You make a good point, but at the same time, like it's such a drop off, right? I mean, I think if you didn't have the super flex, then yeah, maybe the tight end would be a little bit more of an option because we got so many wide receivers that we have to play. But
yeah,
like, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you're right though. Like a lot of us are going to need to fill a bye week for everyone, right? So
yeah,
gonna be a lot of waiver wire pickups and a lot of scrubs. But I mean, who in the league has 2 tight ends? We got Andy's got 2 tight ends. Boyd's got 2. You have 2. Goyo's got 2. I mean, a lot of people do have 2.
Almost everybody has 2. I think you have 1.
Yeah.
And Zach has 3, and I think that's where it ends up netting out. So it's not actually that big of a deal. But tight end just in general is not valued.
Yeah.
And I that's kind of the one thing that I have not figured out, and I couldn't really figure out when I was thinking through this. I was actually really pleased at the values that were associated with quarterback and running back and wide receiver. It was all fairly equal, and it was fairly equal across the positions as well, of where they're being valued about the same. And tight end is very clearly not. Some people do, you know, tight end premium, of where it's like they get 1.5 points per reception or 2 points per reception to try and get bolster the numbers. I feel like that would just make Kelsey and Waller and Kittle.
You should do that.
Unreal in terms of the amount of points they would be getting. They are already basically wide receivers, and now they would be quarterback level of points.
Yeah.
So I don't really know the best way of making tight ends more valued. Maybe we start 2 tight ends.
Jesus, getting wild, man. It's getting wild. Yeah, I think. I mean, both those guys solid, cheap. Matt's got a good team.
Yeah,
that's good.
All right. So overall, how would you rate Matt's team? Do you think it's kind of one of the potential contenders? Is it, you know, really building for the future? Is it just, you know, not necessarily great?
I mean, I don't. Go ahead, Jake.
I would say definitely. I don't think he's traded for any picks really or anything, and just like based on he's spent a good amount of money, it looks like he's going for it this year, and I think he's got an above average top half of the league roster. Be my guess, not having everyone's roster in front of me, but it seems like starters could get it done. I think Lamar Jackson and Ryan Tannehill with Tannehill and that super flex is probably going to work out pretty well. I think that's what he was going for. And again, like I've never played with a super flex. It'll be interesting to see how that works out, if that is a super valuable position or not, and if it pays to pay a second good quarterback. But if that is the right thing to do, then this looks like a team that could, from a starter standpoint, no injuries, look like it would be pretty good.
Yeah, I think the super flex is probably going to be the kind of the X factor. Just looking at all the other quarterbacks and the second QBs that everyone's got, I mean, I think he's got the strongest pairing right there, right? I mean, Mahomes is going to get you a bunch of points all the time, like Daniel Jones. Josh Allen, a bunch of points. Aaron Rodgers, I would say that Joey's team is probably the only other one that I think is comparable to Matt's QB tandem. Yeah, I think when you then throw in Tua as your like safety, I mean he's fine. But I will say I think like Jake said, it's starters, right? I think gets a little, obviously, running backs after Mixon and Carson, just a bunch of backups. So unless someone's getting hurt, he might need to just see if he can deepen up the running back core a little bit. But and then the wide receivers, I think any of those guys are potentially top 20 this year, right? So I think he's kind of set there, and he's got a good rotation to kind of feed in to play whoever's hot. And then the tight ends are solid. So I mean, I think I gave him a pick, or he sent a pick my way too. But I think his lineup his roster is definitely in the upper half and probably the upper third of the league, I think.
Yeah, Matt has a first round pick next year from you.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry.
No, I give it
That's
back
what
to
you
him.
got. Yeah.
Because I sent him one, or he sent me one, and then I sent it back to him.
He has a few. He has a fourth and a second that he's picked up, but that's it. Yeah, I mean, I think you guys both have it pretty correct, right? He definitely has one of the best super flex starters in Tannehill, and that's, I think, is going to provide a lot of value. I think, looking at his team, I don't think that he has really any of those absolute top players, right? He doesn't have, the number 1, number 2, number 3 running back, the number 1, number 2, number 3 wide receiver. But I think he has very solid players. And so I think kind of looking at the starting team that he has is just a very solid team in general. He doesn't have those wild fluctuations of where he's got the number 1 quarterback, but then, the number 14 running back type of a thing. He was able to spend, I think, pretty wisely and get himself kind of a pretty, very, very good starting roster for not too much, but then there is some drop off.
I remember too, when during the auction, I mean, Matt had like one of the highest budgets as we were ending the first night and then going into the second one too. I mean, I think he picked up a good chunk of these super cheap when everybody had kind of blown all their money. So I mean, he's still got over $5 million left. I mean, yeah, I think he's set up to succeed now, but then also to like flow in a couple players for either bye weeks or whoever's kind of hot and he can outbid for a waiver wire pickup. So yeah, he's got a solid team.
Yeah, I think that he is set up to potentially push for a title this year, and he's got some room to be able to make some of those moves potentially to kind of bolster that after some teams kind of realize they might not have it this year and start to try and trade away some of their higher end things for future things.
Yeah.
So with all that, where does what does the algorithm have him at here, Kyle?
Well, which algorithm are you talking? My made up one, my starter one, or my paid for analyzer one?
Wow. Let's start with the paid for one. I would like to see what
all right, the paid for
you spent
one,
some money on.
The paid for one has him sitting at 4th overall. It has him in terms of Dynasty at number 2. So it has him long term. The problem is that our league has some quirks that aren't really taken into account here. So it's not quite perfect, but I do think you can kind of general sense he has one of the top 4, 5, 6 teams that's really going to be pushing for the playoffs, and I think that we kind of all think that was kind of where he netted out. In terms of the ones that I made up, I haven't updated this one, but I had him at number 2. And then for starters, I had him as being the 4th best. So, my made up rankings aren't too bad. I think he has overall, I think, a pretty strong team. I think that there's a few areas here and there, but overall, it's a very strong team, I think.
Yeah. Just thinking the division 2, we've got Andy, and then, but I think like, Joey and is that Stevie are, yeah, I mean those are pretty good teams though.
Yeah, I think
that's one of the stronger divisions.
I think Andy's gonna have a tough time in that division with his current team this year, but Joey, Stevie, and Matt are gonna kind of beat up on each other for those 6 games that they've got.
Yeah.
I really hope Andy does come to the podcast one day.
He will be. We will have him back on very soon. Because I want to hear Andy's side. I'm excited.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. Give him some time to figure out what that side is. I don't think he knows yet.
We'll give him a few week notice to start
Yeah.
writing things down.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for jumping on. You've got great insights. Always happy to chat through fantasy with you. And
Always.
we'll see what Matt has to say about what we netted out with.
Yeah. I'm curious. This is fun. Thanks for the chance to be the first guest.
Always.
Yeah.
Congrats for that.
No, it feels great. I'm honored. If anybody wants to trade, hit me up. Line's always open. Looking for that wide receiver number 1 to just
We
throw
might
in.
have to do another video of your team in a few weeks just to update it too.
Yeah, that's true.
For
That's true.
update.
Might be like an every other week analysis.
Yeah.
Second one, yeah, for sure. I know it's been a couple of weeks or a couple of days at least. I don't know if it's been a week yet since the last trade. So got the itch, guys.
He's pushing for it. He's pushing for it.
Yeah. So all right, Jake, if you want a Cooper back, just hit me up, buddy.
Hey, it could happen. It could happen.
All right. Have fun. Thanks again.
Bye.
All right, thank you. Take
See ya.
care.
Oh,
Great insight there by our inside analysis, Chris Kwan.
I loved his thoughts. Those are definitely good thoughts. And we're definitely gonna have to bring him back.
Yeah, no, we will. He might be a reoccurring segment. Just Chris's roster could be.
Chris's roster analysis is probably every other week, like you said. He'll have a pretty refreshed group to review. All right.
That was good.
Looking back at some fantasy updates, I do think we have a few things that I wanted to chat through that we didn't get a chance before chatting with Chris, but now we do have an opportunity. We kind of talked about it a little bit. Cam Newton being dropped. I think that is quite a big story, and I actually, not to give myself too much credit. But I did go through and pull up quite a few storylines about Newton's drop, what people thought about it, and kind of to try and get some, besides just us, some takes and some insights into what's been going on. But I think it has ramifications beyond just Mac Jones, right? Which a lot of us already knew. But there are some rushing implications. But I want to know what you think about the drop and kind of just your first impressions of it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that obviously firstly, Bill has complete faith in him. Definitely trust the dude to be the starting quarterback, being he is now the starting quarterback, and he must have been like a good locker room presence. I think like a lot of times you hear all these different stories about like what the people think versus like what goes on in the locker room. Like I think Cam Newton is a lot of noise, kind of how he talked about. Seems like he always has something going on outside, and I mean, but it's also like mainly kind of just the outfits and just kind of dresses crazy, but it always kind of seems like there's other things. He is someone who is like active on social media, posting his workouts, yada yada, all these things kind of in the off season and whatnot. But I mean, again, like I think that again, Bill must have had a lot of respect for him, and I think that locker room has a lot of respect from him from what like just kind of hear going around that players respect him. And I don't think like if you want one GM and one head coach to like if there's one that you impress and it means the most is probably Bill Belichick, greatest coach of like all time. So again, for him to release you versus trade you, because I think there's probably somebody who would be like, oh yeah, we'll at least take Cam for our backup. I'm sure you could get something for him. For him to like, I didn't hear about them even like trying to do that.
Yeah.
So I would assume that would mean that Bill didn't think about it or didn't chose to not do that. Just release him, let Cam choose his own destiny, chooses like where he's gonna go. Obviously, you don't get that if you get traded. So I think that there was some respect there, and that means a lot coming from like what all us outsiders would deem as the most like intense team, scariest probably team to play for would be the Patriots. So I think it means it speaks high of probably who Cam is, but also like Mac Jones must have been like a pretty good locker room presence too to like win it over that fast. Because I think it was always a potential where, yeah, maybe week 8, could happen if Cam isn't like 5-3, 6-2.
Yeah.
Probably Jones was going to come in. So for him to make that's a big decision to make that early, and to also, again, big deal to me is not put him at as second string. I think like you and I talked about this earlier, like is not a backup quarterback. That would create like a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
And to like understand that, I think is like why Belichick is a mastermind.
Yeah.
Because he knows that would just create like a weird presence inside that locker room. And obviously, I would feel a lot more comfortable with Cam Newton as my backup quarterback versus Brian Hoyer, who's a familiar face over there, I guess. So
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it just means a lot on those fronts. And then like Mac Jones must like. I hate to say it because I really hope the Patriots aren't like good again this soon. Like I wanted it to like last and like
be a few years.
Let them go through some like rebuilding years where they really losing record, like not like what were they like maybe had a barely losing record last year. I wanted like the 3-4 win season and then like 4 years of mediocrity. And if they just come back up like this and it's
so quickly
all over and they're competing again, I'm going to be upset. And like Brady went off and proved, hey, I'm not a system quarterback. I can go to a different team and win a Super Bowl. I'm the guy. I think this is equally proving for Bill, if this pans out, that he's also the dude. And so then but that also feels good on like every other team's side as a Colts fan being in the AFC. Like we didn't stand a chance then if it was the greatest quarterback ever and the greatest coach of all time together for that long. Yeah, no way I had a chance to ever be happy. So that's my take.
I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think that it definitely spoke volumes of not only Cam Newton but also Mac Jones in terms of Belichick making that decision and not benching him or not trying to trade him, but really kind of just saying like, I appreciate your time. It always seemed like Belichick had not necessarily like a soft spot, because I don't think he has that, but like he liked Newton and like respected him and gave him a lot of freedom that I don't think he gave a lot of his other players. And so clearly there was a reason for that. So, but yeah, it has some implications, I think, beyond just, Jones. I think their running back situation, they did get rid of Sony Michel. They have a rookie in Ramondre Stevenson who's probably not going to do anything. But if you look at kind of like the last year carries within the 5-yard line, Newton had 22 of them. So, Damian Harris is going to have a lot more work. The running back group will have more work. So that's definitely going to impact there. You kind of talked about how you thought Cam Newton had an off the field presence. I had to show this because I saw this. This was from his Instagram story. And I cannot understand why this is a thing, of where people have every single letter being a different character, and how that is. There's got to be an app that does this for you, because that has got to be the most monotonous thing in life to try and type like this. But Cam is just gonna Cam. So
I went off on this tangent about how like Bill must have had a lot of respect for him, and like that makes me kind of be like, okay. And then I haven't like this is what I'm talking about. Like why explain it to me?
It's just so good. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Some fun facts for you. You know I'm about fun facts. The oldest quarterback in the AFC East is now 25 years old, which is phenomenal. They are the absolute youngest quarterback group, 22, 22, 23, 25, something like that. Two of the three were on the same college team together. They actually have three college teammates. The 2018 Alabama not starting roster, but roster had three starting quarterbacks now in the NFL with Hurts, Jones, and Tua. So we all knew that Alabama had an insane program, and now that just kind of confirms it, of where they had three NFL caliber starting quarterbacks on their team at 1 year.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That's on your roster at one time.
Yeah. 2018. Redshirt freshman, I think another freshman, and then junior or senior. But yeah,
I feel like you play on a lower program where, a quarterback doesn't get the exposure, have all this amazing talent around them.
Yeah.
And then only play there for like 1 or 2 years and then go to the league or something, where like the second or third string might never really get playing time, but could have maybe been a prospect, like a decent prospect. Like that's just proof that probably happens quite often.
Yeah. It's and it also is like, it's crazy that you would go to Alabama knowing you're gonna play for 1 year, but like you're playing for Alabama, so it's like you're getting the exposure, but you get 1 year out of your entire college career. It kind of brings me to the thing I wanted to talk about next, which is just some rumors around the league, but it relates in the way of that. I wanted to say, I think that Belichick has got the absolute correct approach when it comes to things, especially with the Cam Newton situation, of where you're not going to bench him. You're not going to have him be your starting, or your second string quarterback. And while we talked about how he's got to have respect for Newton for moving on and dropping him and letting him go out and like find the team where he can be, should just cut the player and recoup that cap that they now have, like a few extra million, to be able to invest into other players. I think too often teams get stuck into this, sunk cost fallacy of where it's like, well, we're already paying him, and if we cut him, we only get a little bit back, and so it's not worth it to us to actually cut him. Which is what I'm going to talk about next, which is Deshaun Watson, who is getting paid a lot of money and is currently potentially going to just sit on the bench for the entire season. They had some options apparently to maybe move him. There was rumors of Miami. There's people potentially saying, I think Philadelphia even. I don't know why they didn't make a move. Do you think that they should have? Do you think that they should have kept him? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, to your point, why do you want a $30-40 million backup, or not even backup, cap hit?
Yeah.
Nothing. Dude has no intentions of playing. I have heard, and I don't know if I think it was either the Eagles or the Dolphins. Maybe wasn't one of those teams, but I'm pretty sure it was. They offered what the asking price was, which was pretty outrageous, and they still didn't do it. So I don't know. I don't think they have any actual intention of it. I think it was like 3 firsts and like a couple seconds.
Yeah.
And maybe a quarterback also. I don't know.
Which is insane.
Yeah. Because like you don't even know what you're getting, in the fact like will he be playing? I think his trial is until next year, so you might get this season. Yeah. But I mean, unless you're like, yeah, it's worth winning possibly a Super Bowl, which I don't know if you put him on the Eagles roster if they're winning the Super Bowl, or the Dolphins roster if they're winning the Super Bowl. Yeah, I there's just too much unknown there to where I think it's a tough spot. Like how hard is it to find the dude? To get the dude is like so tough.
Yeah.
Like at quarterback, the biggest deal, and have him. He doesn't want to be there, but he's worth what they're asking for. They've got offered it. You still don't want to even get rid of it. And then there's the, even with being able to get it, you're not willing to because you know he's the guy. It just speaks even more volume to how important the quarterback position is. And I'm gonna get teary eyed here because one time I had my quarterback position figured out. But yeah, I that is a nightmare of a situation because
Yeah.
I don't see where that it gets figured out.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, to your point, I don't think keeping Watson and paying him and having that cap hit and not getting any value out of him and potentially never playing him again is a great option. And I don't think that you could view we're trading him, we're getting, even 3 first rounds and a few second rounds. You don't know what you're going to get, right? For every potential great prospect, you have a bunch of guys that don't end up working out. So it's I don't think that there really was a winning solution, but I think that Houston was crazy for not taking the opportunity. I mean, he even before the season started didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
So
Knew that, ahead of time.
like, why not? But their FO is just a complete cluster, and it's so fascinating.
Yeah, organization is a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
like it's. I mean, yeah. The if it's true that they were offered that, I think if you're getting, if you're getting a first and a couple seconds, a dude who probably will never play for your organization again, ditch him. Whoever is receiving that, that's the like sketchy end to me. I find it hard to believe somebody offered what they were asking.
Yeah.
If that's true, you're gonna probably be in contention for the first overall pick this year.
Yeah.
Then you get someone else's first. I mean, at that point, draft 2 quarterbacks and like see what happens.
Roll the dice. See
yeah, like I mean, that's wild to me that if they were offered that, they didn't do it because that's your. If you got 3 firsts, 2 seconds, yeah, I'm taking that deal 100 times out of 100. Like you can wipe, like it sucks that you managed to screw that up, a top 5 quarterback, which I'm really happy they did because again, in the division, like that was amazing to watch that good of a quarterback never really be able to do hardly anything.
Yeah.
Like, because they literally, I mean, you traded Hopkins away for literally nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just basically said, hey, we're gonna rebuild while we have an amazing quarterback on our team. So
yeah,
thank you, Houston Texans. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Bill O'Brien, for just completely ruining that whole team. Yeah. Appreciate it.
I knew you'd be a fan. One last final headline: Lamar Jackson has been cut. Apparently, he didn't show up to practice. Not a huge shocker.
It doesn't matter who you are. You don't show up to practice.
Yeah.
Outskis.
I mean, I don't think we fooled anyone. Any of the people that are currently watching or listening in the future. Lamar Jackson of the Jets. This reporter knew exactly what they were doing with this tweet, and I applaud them for that. I really do. That's my last headline. Do you have anything you wanted to chat through?
No, I think you pretty much got it all in there. I think that deserved a little bit more like attention. I feel like more people should have acknowledged that. Like 343 likes for it's a good tweet.
Yeah. Only 49 retweets total.
Yeah, that's the amount of like fake breaking news ESPN things that I've been sent. Like that just seems pretty high up there on the list, and I'm sorry to this guy because that's good content.
It is good content. So jumping into the next section of where we were going to do a fantasy rundown, I've got a fun treat for us after this. But I know that you're in another league where you do a redraft. I actually am in another league where I did a redraft last night, so I was going to chat through that draft. But I wanted to kind of get, just a quick quick primer of what you kind of think some of the major differences between Dynasty versus Redraft. Dynasty in all of its fashions, whether you're keeping a few players, a lot of your players, every player, you're doing salary cap, whatever it might be. But essentially just a continuation from year to year where you have some amount of players that you could potentially keep versus a full go into it. There's just a redraft. There's not really a picking order. It's just random, and you just kind of just go for it, right? So like, what do you think about those, and kind of your pros and cons maybe for each type of league?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny to me. I did literally right before this. It's a standard snake draft, and I mean, you could probably take it really, really serious and do like there's people who do, and this league isn't anything crazy, but it's just so much less stakes, and you can pick a Tom Brady and be like, that's cool. Like, I'm not going to be keeping him. It's fine. Like, the age is like a zero factor. Like relatively, like, I mean, you pick, obviously Julio isn't Julio anymore, but that's not, you expect him to kind of go down, but it's just the age has way less of a factor, I think. And like your point, like when I hear you drafting in our league and stuff, like age is a very big thing to you, and in the snake draft that means absolutely really nothing because it matters none. So I think that's like one of the big ones, and it feels like a lot less stake in the game. A lot, if there is one draft that is laid back and just doing it for fun, I'm not doing it for money, or I'm doing it for a very low amount of money, it's got to be the snake draft in my mind.
Yeah. I think I would totally agree. I mean, I think that I think that each league has kind of value, right? So obviously, I really wanted to have it like a dynasty style league, so that's why I created one and just went for it, and was lucky enough to have 11 friends who were going to be as invested in it as I was. But that's the thing, right? Is that there's a lot of investment in it. There's a lot of time being spent in trying to think deeper than just like you said. Sure, I'll take Tom Brady this year, but I'm not going to take him to have for the future. Same thing with Julio Jones. Like I looked at, I had Henry on my roster. He's 27. I don't think he's got a lot of years left in him, just based off of statistics of what running backs do. So, he wasn't a guy that I wanted to keep, and I was willing to kind of move him for someone younger who I might be able to have for a few years and kind of really lock down a running back position. So, I think there's definitely differences, but I've come to appreciate the redraft snake leagues, and I think that there's still a lot of fun that you can have with that, even after you're involved in like a more intense league.
Yeah, no, I mean, like we've said, it's the time and the place for whatever it is, and I think it's just a lower stakes. It's super easy in the fact where it's auto draft. I trust a little bit more if I need to do that. I mean, if you're somebody who doesn't know really anything besides every team's number one wide receiver, running back, quarterback, like it doesn't really matter, because guess what? Top of the list right there, and you don't need to know the again, the age, the what's going on around them as much. It's just 100% lower stakes, and it obviously just, the more complex you get, the more probably time you need to put into it as the leagues go on, whether it's dynasty or even in our league where it's above and beyond that with the auction too. So but I mean, it's still just as, like, for what it is, it's just as fun. I mean, it's obviously we're doing this podcast because we enjoy fantasy football, we enjoy fantasy sports. So nonetheless, big fan, still a big fan.
All right. Well, I want to get your take as a big fan. I have it up on screen, but I will also talk through it. So I joined this league with one of my friends who wasn't really able to kind of commit to doing the bigger league that we have. So I still wanted to play with him, so we joined this league, and it's actually from a Twitch streamer who I go and hang out with in his stream every now and then. I hang out with. I chat in his stream. I don't hang out with him, but I joined his league, and he kind of had asked for some opinions and feedback, and there was only going to be 8 to maybe 10 owners. And so I said, if there's only going to be 8 or 10, we should probably try and think through a few things, because if you've got eight players, and you do kind of the standard, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, there's going to be so much depth that there's not really as much strategy in my mind. And so we were able as a group, but I kind of led the way and said, let's do super flex. Let's add that in. And then he ended up saying, yeah, and we're going to have 3 wide receivers and 2 flex positions and kickers and defense. So we have a lot of starters. It's a big amount of starters, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, tight end, 2 flex, a super flex, and then defense and kicker. So there's 12 starters, 18 roster spots, 10 owners. So still a few players left in the free agency and the waiver wire, and we can maybe get some trades. But I had the 4th pick, and this group of people went very hard in on running backs. So as you can kind of see, I ended up getting Josh Allen with my first pick, which I was pleased with. I was hoping for either Allen or Cook. I figured I didn't have a shot at McCaffrey or Mahomes. And then people ended up going running back, 1 quarterback, a tight end, receiver, running back, wide receiver. So there wasn't a whole lot left for me when it came to top end players. And Kyler Murray was still on the board, who I think is the number 3 quarterback in the league. And so I ended up going quarterback as my first 2 picks in a draft, which is not something you hear very frequently.
No.
But I did it. I kind of have some slight regrets about it, if I'm honest. Again, this is kind of just for fun for me. So then I knew I had to take a running back, so I ended up with Eckler as my RB1, which I don't...
Is it PPR?
It is PPR.
Then I think that's not a bad...
It's not bad. I
pick.
liked getting him in the 3rd round. That's not too bad. It came back around to me. People finally realized, we should start pick up some quarterbacks. So then it just went through a huge string of quarterbacks, a few people here and there. I actually thought I was going to end up with Gibson again, because I figured, this team I thought might try and pick up a receiver. I didn't know what they were going to do. They ended up picking up a running back, which was a very smart play. But I knew that the teams after were probably not going to be targeting a 3rd running back. So I was hoping I was going to land Gibson. Unfortunately, I was not able to. He was taken off the board. And is at the point where I decided, okay, I might go Kittle or Waller. Kittle got taken right before me, so I ended up with Waller. It swung back around, and I picked up Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my number 2 running back, which I'm not displeased with that. I think that's a very solid 2nd running back. As time went on, it came back around to me, and DeAndre Swift was still on the board. Again, it was too difficult for me to pass up.
Yeah, I got him today too, and I think he had that questionable arc on our draft. I don't know if he had it in your draft, where he might not. I don't know if it's like way too early for any small injury to like even be like
Be a factor.
A thought, but they have it like on there. So like he stuck around really late in our draft too, and I think it was just that
little cue
that made people like, no, I'm sticking away, where it's like, even if he misses a week or 2, I'll take him as my backup, like 4th running back. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, if you look at some of the running backs that were taken right before, Montgomery isn't necessarily a bad choice, but I still think Swift is a little bit higher ranked. And then Hines, who I thought was maybe a misdraft. This team has Barkley, who probably won't play for the first couple games, and then picked up Hines, who is a running back that is a backup to Taylor. I thought that was very interesting of a pick. And
To be fair, being a guy on the team that I follow, he gets a lot of receptions. I think he might have had the second most receptions or on the team last year.
really,
So he like almost plays wide receiver sometimes. So I put him in the slot before.
all right.
So I definitely would not pick him that high. You could probably go the whole draft and he might not get picked.
Yeah.
Way too early, but I think he could end up getting more than what you think. But yeah, apparently this guy is. I really enjoy this person is a big Colts fan because then I see Pittman a couple picks after. So
yes,
and has Colts defense
and the Colts
so,
defense.
I like whoever this is, smart dude. But yeah, you could have got that a few rounds probably later.
Yes.
You went okay, so you went to Waller.
Suffice to say, I had two quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and a tight end after my first 6 rounds. So I unintentionally went the no wide receiver route in a league that has 3 wide receivers and 2 flex positions. So I knew that I had to pick a receiver. I ended up picking Julio Jones because I was surprised that he was still available. If it was a longer-term league, again, this is kind of where we're talking about Dynasty versus Redraft, I might have gone with Ayuk or DJ Moore, but Jones is just projected to still perform. I didn't want to take a super big risk on, Ayuk, who is going to be having Kittle back, is going to be having, Sermon, is still not certain on who their quarterback is. It just felt like short-term Jones is probably the better value. I do want to call out right before my pick, Tucker was taken. So the first kicker was taken in the 7th round. So again, this seemed like a league of where people knew a bit about fantasy football. This is where my biases come in, of where you can see I waited until the very last round to pick up a kicker in a defense. Some teams picked up 2 kickers. It just seemed a bit odd, some of the decisions that were made throughout. I'm not going to hate on it. It's not really my tactic. But people were pretty high on taking kickers, even in the 10th, 11th, 8th round, well before I thought that they should have been being picked up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It came back around to me, and Javonte Williams was still on the board again. I can see Michelle and Henderson got picked back to back before me. Hines got picked up. So there are some backup quarterbacks that were being picked up. Gaskin, who's in a running back by committee, and so I just decided I needed to get one more running back if I could, just before they were all taken. So I went with Williams, who I think might have a good career ahead of him and not really much competition in the Denver backfield. But then I knew that wide receiver was a must. So I went Galladay, Chase, Chark, Waddle. Went back and picked up one final running back just kind of as bench coverage. Got Cooks. And then I finally fleshed out my roster with my 3rd quarterback with Carson Wentz. I knew you would be proud of that pickup.
It was a great pick. Good job, Kyle.
In the 15th round, even.
It's trade bait right there.
Yeah. I picked up Everett as my backup tight end. I think that he has the potential to have a pretty good season with a new quarterback in Russell Wilson. And then I had my kickers Prater, and then defense is Broncos.
Yeah, so I mean, I just assume the only thing you're not real confident in is your wide receivers.
You are absolutely correct.
I think that I would have probably done the same thing pretty much down to Julio is where I would have been maybe done something different, but I'm not passing on Murray in a super flex league.
Yeah.
As no way.
Yeah.
Worst comes to worst, you're going to be able to get something out of that if you're like, if Carson Wentz is getting near them, like a couple weeks and feel comfortable with him, like you'll be able to trade him for at least a wide receiver one to some of these people here who are not thriving in the quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. You, I definitely, I definitely saw some interesting picks when it came
Trevor
down.
Lawrence is going, and he's not even. We don't know if he's. Oh wait, never mind. Was thinking Trey Lance. Never mind. He is a starting quarterback. Still
Yes.
seems really high,
Yeah.
but okay, is not Trey Lance, so is a starting quarterback. So that's a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. Lance went down way down below. He's got Brady Cousins. So Sunbun, this team is actually the team that I think is the biggest competition for me. So he's got Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, Tom Brady, Ridley, Allen, Woods. He's got Robinson. He's got Henderson. So he's got 4 starting running backs.
Yeah.
He's got Tom Brady, who's quality, and Kirk Cousins, who again is quality. Lance is one of the odd flyers in a redraft league, especially with having Daniel Jones available, Carson Wentz available, Roethlisberger. There's still quite a few quarterbacks that are available. So taking a flyer on an unannounced starting quarterback is a bit different. But Edmonds, Drake, and Pollard as kind of really a lot of bench filler for the running backs. He's only got 4 wide receivers. So he's got Thomas, Woods, Allen, Ridley. He went with kind of a different approach for tight end with Tonyan and Smith. It's not one that I dislike. But by the time it swung back around to him, he maybe could have picked up Andrews and really secured that tight end position of having one of the top 5. But ended up going with Allen, which I wouldn't disagree with making that choice. But I feel like this is the one team that might give me some troubles, and maybe my friend James, who it's because I helped him pick his first 5 because it was 3 a.m. in England, so I logged in for him and made those picks, and then he ended up waking up and finishing off the draft. So for him, I picked McCaffrey. I got Prescott. I got Diggs, Mixon, and Hurts. I feel like that was a pretty solid. I did him a solid with those.
Yeah, the only one I would have been mad at you maybe for would be Hurts, but
Yeah.
No, I think that's did kind of bash, or I bashed on Mixon earlier, but I mean, if he's there, you're gonna pick him. So
Yeah.
got a good little insurance policy and Gaskin there too. So
Yeah.
and I mean, he got Zach Moss, so he technically has 4 starting running backs.
Yeah. So he's still doing decent. So down here, these become his picks down here. So he has a few things here and there. Again, he decided to jump in and pick up a kicker early and pick up a defense early, in my opinion, early. But the Steelers are one of the better defenses, so you can't really fault him for that. And Sanders is probably going to be a decent kicker. So, I think really the only option that makes sense to pick up a kicker early is if you're going to pick up Koo, but that's just my opinion.
I mean, pretty much kicker, not so much. But when it comes to defense, like especially in a league like this, like I'm just picking on a week by week basis and picking for the matchup. So that's my last pick.
Yeah, that was mine. It was my last pick was my defense.
I mean, to get a top tier defense does help out too. So I get it, but I mean, I'm not going to go as early as most of these defenses were going. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm looking at it from the perspective of I was able to get Jamar Chase and DJ Chark when people started picking up kickers and defenses.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny comparing this to like our league where like think of maybe it actually might be similar to this, but like Jamar Chase went like pretty early in our league. Was his name was brought up early, which I guess doesn't mean anything, but
he went
from
for
a salary
a lot.
yeah, from a salary standpoint, he went for a lot. Obviously, that's where it's a complete different thing. Where I think he was signed to a 5-year deal, but like in my league, I picked him up in like one of my last 4 or 5 picks, and I was like, oh, this is a steal. But it's just how these leagues are completely different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was from going to from ours to this. It is way different.
Yeah. I felt so much more prepared for this though.
Yeah.
I kind of knew who I was going to be going for. So we'll see how this league does. I'll try and remember to provide some updates as the season goes on, just to kind of say, hey, getting the number 2 and the number 3 quarterback did me great, or not picking up a wide receiver until the 7th round really kind of screwed me over. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. No, this is um and, like I like the fact that they added a super flex into this. Like that's something that moving forward I want to put in all my leagues because I think that mine was a 10-man too, and it's just you need a little bit more than the standard to kind of not everybody have a really good roster.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really why I think it's a thing. I think we should try and end up here pretty soon. It's not going to be 6 minutes long, but I did want to do my soccer in 6. I think you also have a few things you wanted to share, but I don't really want to talk about the Sounders this week. They lost at home to Portland, who is their biggest rival, 2-0. Was not very fun to watch. It was a very frustrating game. It was 2 very dumb goals that we gave up from errors on the defensive and the goalkeeping side. The good news, if there can be any good news, is that I think it made it a lot easier for the organization and for the fans to say, Stephen Cleveland, you have filled in for Fry, who's been out with an injury admirably, but we want Fry back, who is our starting goalkeeper, who is now healthy. So it's going to be a bit easier on us as fans, I think, for that. So looking forward to the future. But man, it was rough to go from. We had 3 games within like 7 days, I think, and we got 9 points. So we had 3 wins on the road in 7 days. It's never been done in the league. They were the first to do it. It's phenomenal. Great job. And then they came home and they lost very horribly to our biggest rival. So that was always that was a big disappointment. But in other news, have you ever heard of a team called Wrexham Association Football Club? So Wrexham AFC.
No.
So it's going to become, we're going to adopt it. It's going to become our podcast team. They're a Welsh team. They play in the English system, though. So even though they're in Wales, they play mostly against English teams. Just long story of how it's all set up over there. Scotland has its own league. England has its own league, and the Welsh teams play in the English system. So that's just how it works. But they are down in, I think it's the 5th tier, maybe the 6th tier. So it's down towards the bottom. They have a lot of history. They're one of the earliest teams. They have their stadium has a lot of history as well, with like the Welsh national team playing some games there. But they have been in kind of some financial troubles. In England and in Wales, and especially in the smaller towns, those teams have a lot of like meaning to the communities, it was always great. They have that strong fan base and their home team thing, which is something that I don't think we necessarily really have with our franchise leagues that we have here. That's a whole different topic. But anyway, they were struggling with money, and Ryan Reynolds and his good friend Rob McInerney, bought the team.
Talking
year.
like Ryan Reynolds, like our Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. Okay. Like Deadpool, and then the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So they bought the team. It's their team. This is kind of, I think, the first full year of where it's going to be kind of them fully ownership and all those kinds of things. And they're going to try and put some money in and get this team to get promoted up through the ranks and start to play against the top teams. Who knows how long it's going to be? Who knows how much money they're really going to invest in it? They're currently sponsored by TikTok. So that's, a great... They've got a TikTok logo on their jerseys. It's great. They've started off the season with a win. I think that they have 2 draws, so they haven't lost yet.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I'll check in with them periodically through the podcast. We'll give some updates. If they start to really underperform, then I'm probably going to just forget about them and not even talk about them again. But if they're going to make a move and potentially play for promotion, then it'll be a good time to chat through some fun soccer updates with them.
That's intriguing to me. So I'm looking forward to these updates.
Yeah.
Team sponsored by TikTok, Ryan Reynolds. That's intriguing stuff.
Yeah, it's I figured you would like it.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this segment. Not that I wasn't before, Kyle. Not that I wasn't before.
Yeah. Obviously.
Well, speaking of TikTok, now we did, this is a fantasy football podcast and all, but it's important to recognize, what's going on in other spheres of the universe. So I think, honor of this team, it's important us to maybe have some reactions to at least a small portion of what's going on out there. And I don't know how often you maybe wander on TikTok or anything like that, but what better to end things off with maybe a couple cringy TikTok videos of some of one of the trends that I happen to stumble across. So I'll drop you a couple links. I don't know how it's gonna. I think it's gonna go to TikTok on desktop, and it might not be the most beautiful thing ever, but we'll see how it works.
We'll make it work.
I think I said the same one twice. Maybe not. Okay, so, but this the trend is called POV, getting arrested.
Okay.
And so this is just some of these that I stumble across that have a lot of views. And I just want you to take a look here and let me know what you think.
I'm already very excited. This is gonna be great, I think. So looking forward to it. So POV, you're getting arrested. So this is from my point of view.
This would be us. I think this is like us watching somebody get arrested.
Okay.
So
right away, I have to say that makes
already
no
wrong.
sense. It should be
already incorrect.
Point of view, like your friend gets arrested.
Getting arrested.
Something.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
All right. I got that going on already in my mind.
I saw the life inside your eyes. I don't know. Will the audio come up? That doesn't really matter, but it might be even worse with no audio.
There's just a lot going on. Okay.
Now, is that not just wow? Now, there's another one. They're all the same. They play the same song, obviously, and then I have one final one that just kind of is like, I think what we're all thinking when we watch this. What is better than how bad these are is like the people making fun of the people who are taking it serious. There's a lot of great ones of that, but again, you can't, like, that's just hard for me to watch when you're trying to be sexy, and it's just like, what are you doing? But there's 4.6 million views on that, so I mean. He wins.
This
he
has
wins.
Almost 600,000 likes.
Yeah, and I think I've seen one with this, and it might have been like somebody stitching it but it was in the 2 millions, and I couldn't find that one as another reference point. But this has, I've seen it with more views, but same exact thing here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
um,
just to say, I just have to say, the amount of views that TikTok gets, I know that they're shorter videos, and so the views aren't necessarily as meaningful as, say, like a YouTube view. However, if somebody watched 5 seconds of a YouTube video, that counts as a view.
mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's really that inflated. But getting millions and millions of views, like getting 600,000 likes and 86,000 comments and 63,000 shares. You know, I work, you work as well, but I work in the social media world, and getting that kind of engagement on anything is phenomenal. And so to have that for like this, it hurts me so much.
It hurts. It hurts.
Because
That's the most frustrating part, is because you like, we do things that cost a lot of money, and there's a lot of like thought and whatnot put into it. I really hope there was no actual thought put into this, and no real like money behind it, but it worked.
yeah.
Worked.
Yeah. See, now you and I have put some time into this podcast, and I'm not saying that we deserve success by any means. I think we're both going into this being like, this will be fun. Let's do it because it's fun. We're not going to get famous. We're not going to get more than like 40 listens on an episode. The day we break 50 listens, you and I will each take a shot on stream, and that'll be what we do to celebrate 50 listens for one episode. But like, this is insane.
That's
I saw the life inside.
yeah, let's just this one feels a little longer. I don't know if it actually is longer, but this one feels longer, so I'm excited to do that.
I saw
You two
the
are
life
arrested.
inside.
Hands on your back. Jake,
It is more dramatic with the music, I will say. I don't know if you can hear it, at least on your end.
we've got the sound going through.
But it just like this one, you have your buddy with you,
Yeah.
and you're in your room, and you're like, "Hey, some strobe lights,
Yeah.
basically naked, and let's pretend we're getting arrested and look like, at the camera all sensual." I don't know. I don't get it. I don't want to say that it's just not my cup of tea. I think I just got the EBGBs when I was kind of watching it. I felt uncomfortable when I was by myself.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you shared with me to be able to get my reaction recorded on watching this.
yeah, it just seemed it's just the internet never fails to. This one will do no audio for anyone else, but then again, if you made it this far, you're listening, I would just leave because you're not gonna hear the audio, but you can listen to it, Kyle. But it's more so the what we're all thinking when we're watching this kind of view. I think we're all going to end up raising TikTokers at this point.
Oh.
I love you.
This is all I can think about as I'm watching these videos.
What was that? It's just a video of a POV, me getting arrested, and my girlfriend saying that she loves me and me saying it back. Okay. What? Nothing. Are you actually planning on posting that? I thought that the idea was pretty cool. It's your account. Post whatever you want. My God.
It was pretty cool.
That was. I'm hoping the sound came through for everybody. I think it does because I think it's feeding in through my headphones. But
It's true. I have the stream muted, so that's why I don't hear it.
That's why
That
you
makes
don't
sense.
hear it. Yeah, okay.
That makes sense.
Okay. So yeah. So I'm so looking forward to that with my children and future children. Of if TikTok and social media is still around in the way it is now, I don't imagine it ever going away fully.
Yeah, it would be different for sure. This, but like this gets 5.7 million
Yeah,
likes. Like that's which if you just make fun of people, apparently that's where we're at. That's how you get the most exposure.
I guess that's what we got to start doing. Is we got to
Yeah.
start filming TikToks to make fun of other TikToks, and then
I feel like we
can...
kind of, yeah, that's a good avenue. Half of what we do is kind of that, whereas we are making fun of our team or our other GM's rosters for a good portion of the show.
True. But that's not bringing anybody in to listen to us. So we got to do
No.
this to then make them come and listen to our podcast about fantasy football, which is definitely related to TikToks. And
Yeah,
then they
yeah.
can hear us make fun of the other owners in our league. So that's definitely.
But I felt like this was needed. A part of the show here was to at least enlighten those who maybe are more caught up in the fantasy football world and not branching out.
And not
maybe
exposing
this
themselves to TikTok.
maybe this will lead you to staying in the fantasy football world
Yeah.
and hiding from everything else.
Yeah, I appreciate the pop culture updates. I'm excited to see what fun you bring us next week. It'll be a great time, I'm sure, of where we can tune in, get I'm not that old, but in my mind I'm like 75, so you can get a 75-year-old's reaction to TikToks.
What more could anyone want?
What
more could anyone want?
Could anyone want? Well, we are at time. I appreciate anyone who has come this far and listened to the entire episode. I do want to give another thanks to Chris for joining us, being our first guest. Next week, I'm pretty sure we've got Matt lined up, so we can hear what he has to say in response, and then we'll go through another roster with Matt, so it should be a good time.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. Looking forward to Matt, and thank you to anybody who did make it this far. We appreciate it. And everyone, fantastic rest of their day, evening, week, month, year. Just keep it fantastic.